My goodness, you look different. I'm used to seeing the back of your head. You're beautiful even then. When I was asked to talk a little bit, and share some things that may come to me, and I was told it was going to be on Father's Day. Well, that was easy. The title was easy. Who's your daddy? The fill-in part was time consuming. Was actually listening time and quiet time, listening to the Spirit. The idea of who's your daddy, yeah, it's it's hip, yes, but it's an idea that, for me, it has its time. I want to digress just a minute, and most of you know me, and most of you know I've had some health challenges, but I'll have you know, I went to the lung doctor, and I'm doing really good. I don't have the energy I used to have, but I'm almost 70 years old, so maybe that's something to do with it too, I don't know. But,
it's kind of, okay.
Am I good now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're good anyway. You're always good.
Turn it sideways.
Yeah, let's just.
The cord won't reach. Oh, really? No, it won't. The cord won't.
Okay. Okay. I'll just hold it. Instead of me sitting here getting memorized, seeing it go back, I'll just hold it.
There you go.
The idea of who my daddy is was I contemplated for a long time about who is your daddy. I have a physical daddy, obviously, and we'll talk about him. He's quite a character. And then, but our spiritual daddy is also for each of us to find, each of us to grasp, each of us to hold on to. You have your own daddy figure, whether it's a male, a female, it doesn't matter. It's the person who does something to help you, to show love to you, to show arms around you. And of course, who does that better than God? I talk a lot about God and Jesus because that's the way I was brought up. And I've decided I'm going to keep being brought up that way. First person I want to talk to you about is my grandfather, Warren Nash. Warren is an old-fashioned name. I happen to be carrying it on, and my grandson, who's gone to Sunday school, happens to have it. And Grandpa, he was always old. I mean, just old. White hair, walked with a limp. He was just old. But boy, did I love him. He and my step-grandmother raised chickens down in a little town called Duncan, Oklahoma. And I can remember being the curious person I was. I got in the chicken coop. You don't do that with a bunch of chickens who are laying eggs. I found out. I've never seen my grandfather move so quickly. He got me out of there, and I couldn't sit down for nothing. Because I took eggs from those chickens, right? Well, that disrupted their whole schedule, having this little kid in there picking at them, and so they started picking back. I can remember sitting in his lap in his living room and looking out across the door, which was open. Bright, sunshiny day, the birds are chirping in the backyard, everything's just fine. Sitting in his lap, watching the house across the street blow up. A tornado came down and hit it. Never hit our side of the street. Hit that side. It just blew everything up on that house. Nobody was there, thank goodness. But, so little tornado warnings don't bother me much. Of course, has something to do with being older, too. I can't get to that shelter quick enough. So, but his life was very, very simple. Simple. It was not complicated. He did not have devices. He did not have, he only had a second grade education. He was very musical inclined. I can remember he and my dad, his son, playing their musical saws together. Now, that's something you don't see a lot, but I remember watching that and thinking, don't they know music? Of course, I never said anything like that to my grandfather and to my dad. There might have been, I might have been chicken coop forever. But anyway, he had a very simple life. It was, you get up in the morning, take care of the chickens, take care of yourself, play with the grandson, which I happen to like, and you do your stuff, whatever that stuff may be for him to do at 112 years old. Remember I told you he was old. He had a deep impact on me on the simplicity and the gift that he gave of simple. It's simple. You don't have to fret and worry. It's simple. Just accept. Look for your good and find it. Then the next person I want to talk to is about another grandfather, my Grandpa Hutchins, my mom's dad. He was a high school graduate. He was worked for the city of Ames in their light plant, their electric plant. He was one of the few who was ever given a engineer's degree without going to college, because he knew how to do everything in the electric plant. And I'm sure there was a series of tests and things like that you had to do to get that. But he always took great delight in being a city worker, a long-term city worker, and somebody that always went to work. So I learned commitment from him. He always, looking at him now, in my mind's eye, he always wore a gray shirt and gray pants, a uniform, if you will. I never remember seeing him without that, except on Sundays, or if we were going to go out to eat, really fancy stuff like that. He was, my grandfather Warren, Grandpa Nash, had the simple life. Grandpa Hutchins had the committed life. He took on an assignment. He took on a job. He took on a field of his efforts, and he stuck to it, always. So not only do we have the simple life, we have a committed life. Then the next person I want to talk to is about somebody I've never met. Somebody I don't know, never shook his hand, never said hello to him, never did anything except learn about him. But I'm sure glad he was here because he gave me Linda. Her father was Don Wilkes. He was a police chief of a small town up in Minnesota, Spring Park, which was a lakefront town. So he had all that to go with. And what did I learn from him and studying him and hearing all the stories? If you go to the Wilkes family reunion, which we did a lot, you'd hear stories about him, about what he would do. This is back in the day when the police car was also their family car. So, thinking now in today's world, would that ever happen? I'm sure it does happen, but it was just so interesting that he gave such an impact to his family, whether he knew him or not. He didn't know me from Adam, of course, but I feel like I know him. I feel like I know, what did I know about him the most that I really, really like, besides being Linda's dad, was every year there would be a circus come into town. And the kids in Spring Park, they were economically deprived, as you were. They could not afford the tickets to go to the circus. But Don would take kids to the circus. And I don't know the details. I don't know if he footed the bill, which would not surprise me, or the city did, or what. I don't know. All I know is that he'd find kids who didn't have a chance to have fun and to be at peace with their friends instead of trying to be out on the playground. You know how kids can be. And take them to the circus. And then come to find out from other stories that I heard, my mother-in-law, she's passed now, but before we had talked about him, and he would do stuff with kids. He just enjoyed kids. And I learned a lot from him about compassion. The idea of giving of yourself so someone else might have a step up. Yes, he was he was a constable until they made the city of Spring Park an incorporated city. Then he had to become the chief of police. The politics, I guess, I don't know. But he was just a remarkable figure that I wish I had known, but I did know. And I'm glad I did get to know him through others. He had an impact not only on his children, but I'm sure hundreds of children in that area. That people, I remember when Officer Dan used to take us to the circus. They would tell their kids, who would tell their kids, who gives a different point of view of how the police are, who gives a compassionate view, who gives a view of caring about kids. And that's always been important in my life, to care about kids. That's, why I coached for so many years, and now my baseball boys are having babies. I can remember some of them telling them to make sure you pull your pants up before they fall down. That was told to me by my mom in front of the entire school when I was playing Little League. But I can remember those days, and I can remember the images of, it's simple. Commitment, compassion. Aren't those three spiritual gifts? Wouldn't you like them to be your gift? It's simple. It really is. To turn away from whatever and turn to. Now then, the one that's going to be the most difficult for me to talk about is my dad, Richard Warren Nash. He's gone now. I liked him. I loved my dad, but I liked him. And what did my dad do for me? He got me to love baseball. Any of you who know me know that baseball, I like it a little bit, okay? I watch it every day practically now that I'm retired. That's another good thing to be retired about, Carl. I'm trying to give Carl hints about what he can do when he retires someday. I enjoy baseball. I gave a talk once, so maybe I will next time, about what a baseball diamond looks like. And how it's of God. It has to be. Who could make such a perfect game? You know, it's wonderful. But baseball was a catalyst for not only my life and my son's life, my grandsons, but also for hundreds of kids that we came into contact with over the years to learn a simple game. Learn it with compassion. It's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And learn it with the ability to see the end game. My dad did more than just baseball. Though there are some days I think that was enough, thank you. He was a dad. I was a kid. And there were times where the dad and the kid did not get along. Of course, none of you have ever experienced that, being Unity people you are. That happened even when we were adults. It was even worse. My dad just didn't understand anything. My dad didn't get it. He was, 2 bricks short of a full load. That's his son talking, rebellious son talking. Little did I know, he didn't need to have any more. He had it all. He had a family. He had a wife who loved him very much, and a son who, while I wouldn't admit it always, loved him very much. He went into scouting with me. He was my scoutmaster for a long time. Of course, I never thought of the scoutmaster. I thought of the taskmaster. You know how kids are. He was always trying to make me take a step forward. Don't go back. Don't go back. And he would do it with compassion and commitment. He would do it with the love of a father. I didn't understand that love of a father until I became one. Two of mine are here. I didn't understand what that was like. But I really didn't understand what being a grandfather was like. God's been good to me. 3 great kids and 3 great grandkids. God is good all the time. The idea of finding your way, of finding what's important to you on Father's Day was important to me to go through that exercise of what do I remember, what do I really gather, what do I and the thing about my dad was, yes, baseball, but not really. What really I remember about my dad is about how he loved his son. And I can say that now from almost 70 years this year. Looking back at it, would I've ever admitted it to him? No. Men in my family don't talk about that kind of stuff until they become grandfathers. When he became a grandfather to those and my son, that man changed. He was so lovey-dovey. He would always tell his son that he loved him. And finally one day, we were teasing each other, and I said, "You just love me because I gave you grandchildren." And he looked at me and went, "Yeah." He loved his grandchildren. But most importantly, on Father's Day, he loved his son. I know that. I felt that. I still feel that. Every day, he's with me in some form. Sometimes it's not so good. Sometimes I remember things that, what the heck is going on? But there's not a day that I don't not think about him and my mom and Linda. They're all gone. They're all trading stories, I'm sure, somewhere in the great beyond. But I had 4 male, in this case, daddies. 2 grandpas, a father-in-law, and a dad. Boy, I'm lucky. How lucky are you? How lucky are you? Look in your heart and just breathe in and breathe out. Let's just take a time to go within and to feel on this particular day, Father's Day, the idea of peace, of having the that come to you in so many different ways. We're breathing in and breathing out, celebrating the idea of life. We can live in the beingness of people who physically may be not here, but we live and celebrate their beingness with us because God is. The idea of relaxation, of breathing deeply, taking the breath of God within you and letting it be your compassion, be your simple base, be your commitment, and be your love. Feel the idea of heaven, whatever that means to you, of grace, however that looks for you, the idea of peace, however that is. The idea of peace for me is you. You are my idea of peace. Each one of you are my idea of the perfect, the absolute perfect peace that I can have. Today, right now, I declare your peace within me. You have that peace within you. Try to see the idea that you are the light and you are the smile that God has for people today. Breathing in and breathing out. It's such a delightful time to do that. Breathing in, breathing out. As we begin to become aware of our place and time, and coming back once again into this room knowing that you are fulfilled, you are at peace, even if it's just for that millisecond. You know no more joy than that. And so, God is. I always end in a question. So the question I have for you today, isn't God good? Yes, all the time. Amen.